Barbarians in Pathfinder 2e have 6 distinct options when it comes to picking their subclass. 6! 6 options for a class based around getting mad and hitting stuff. But which one makes you the most mad and hit stuff the best? Well, that's what I'm here today to talk about. Howdy. My name is Nonat, and in this video I'll be ranking the 6 Barbarian Instinct subclasses from worst to best. Now, in the past, when I've ranked things, I've gotten comments telling people that I do it in a sort of quasi-random way that doesn't make much sense and is really hard to follow because you are not in my brain. So today, I am going to fix that. Today, I'll be scoring each of the Barbarian Instinct in 3 distinct categories. Each category will be worth up to 10 points, and they will get a final score out of 30. This final score determines exactly where they rank. The 3 categories are as follows. Power, or how strong the class is mechanically. Maximum damage, different types of damage, or other mechanical advantages. Flavor, or how detailed the subclass is. How much roleplay potential is there, and is that roleplay reflected by the available mechanics? And finally, fun factor. Is this subclass enjoyable to play? Does it have a bunch of unique features and unique mechanics that work well and are satisfying to use? The fun factor score is definitely going to be weighted in my own personal opinion. Before we jump in, it would be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Pathfinder 2e content like this. I'd also like to thank all of these Patreon people for supporting me over the past few months. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, I'll tell you more about that at the end. We'll be going from worst to best today, so we'll be starting with my single favorite Barbarian Instinct. Yeah, you heard me right. My favorite instinct is undeniably the worst one. We are talking about the Fury Instinct. Poor Fury. We all knew Fury would rank low in this video, and I feel so bad because I love the Fury Instinct. It's just such a cool concept, but it is undeniably so weak. It's tied for the second lowest rage damage in the entire game. It also gets absolutely no unique bonus beyond that, except for a bonus level 1 Barbarian feat. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever noticed, but first level Barbarian feats are not very good. There's a reason that every Barbarian takes sudden charge. Fury Barbarians also only have 1 unique feat to them, and they do not get it until level 16, and it's in the Advanced Player's Guide. It's also a terrible feat, because you need to get critically hit for it to function. On the upside, you do get to attack the enemy back, and some of you might already be thinking, whoa, this combines really well with Come and Get Me, right? You know, Come and Get Me lowers your armor class, and then you can attack back when they crit you? Well, yeah, except no, because the level 14 feat Vengeful Strike works the exact same way, except it doesn't need to be a critical hit, and you don't need to be Fury Instinct to take it. Seriously, why is this feat so bad, Paizo? On the upside, Fury Barbarians do get resistance to all physical weapon damage? Why just weapon damage? Wait, why not unarmed strikes? Why not hazards? Why not spells that deal physical damage? Paizo, this could have potentially saved the Fury Barbarian and had it function as a really solid tanking instinct, but no. This instinct really needs something else going for it, because right now it is undeniably the weakest and gets a 2 out of 10 for power. Personally, I really wanted to give this instinct a higher score for flavor. It's the classic. You get mad and you hit stuff. What could go wrong? That's sort of the problem. Nothing can go wrong. It only gets a 5 out of 10 because even Paizo pretty much says, yeah, that's it. In fact, the Fury Instinct only has 1 sentence of text describing it. Your rage comes from a deep and purely personal well within you. And while that does give you complete creative freedom on how to flavor your rage, it doesn't get past all the other negatives that come with this instinct. In fact, it kind of feels like it's actively punishing players for not picking one of the fancy instincts like Dragon or Giant. With all of that said, fun factor is the only place the Fury Barbarian really shines, and that's purely from a personal perspective. I'm a really heavy roleplay focused player, so having the freedom to customize my backstory, customize my own reasons for fighting, and all of that makes the Fury Instinct really fun for me, especially because I don't need to be bound by an anathema. Hopefully I'd be able to work with my GM to get some custom bonuses based on my personal backstory, but rules as written, it's just not that exciting. On the upside, you don't need to feel constrained or forced to take specific feats. You know, if you're playing an Animal Instinct Barbarian, you're probably gonna take Animal Skin at level 6. You're not forced to take it, but you're forced to take it. Since there's only one feat in the entire game that's specific to the Fury Instinct, and it's not that good, it can be pretty freeing to just pick whatever the hell you want. The Fury Barbarian gets a 7 for fun factor, leading to a total score of 14 out of 30. Next on our list is the newest instinct released by Paizo in the Advanced Player's Guide, the Superstition Instinct. Now, I love the idea Paizo had when designing the Superstition Barbarian, an actively anti-magic warrior who seeks out and destroys magic, gaining bonuses when they try to do so. The problem is just in how they mechanically implemented it. First off, the power. This is mechanically one of the weakest instincts in the game. If you are not attacking a magic user, you deal the lowest rage bonus damage of any instinct, maxing out at 8 bonus damage at level 15. Even if you are attacking a magic user, it only increases to plus 12. Additionally, its unique feats are not all that impressive, especially Mage Hunter at level 6. Am I alone here, or is Mage Hunter just worse than Attack of Opportunity? Mage Hunter, if someone casts a spell within range of a melee strike for you, you can attack them, and on a crit, interrupt it. Cool. Attack of Opportunity, if somebody moves, makes a ranged attack, or uses a manipulate action, you can attack them, and if it's a manipulate action, on a critical hit, interrupt it. Any spell with a somatic component is a manipulate action. The only mechanical advantage that Mage Hunter has is you can attack them if they're using a spell with only a verbal component, and there's not a lot of verbal-only combat spells in Pathfinder 2e. Sunder Spell at level 12 isn't all that bad. Being able to counteract any effect on the target just by hitting them is cool. The problem is that you only get one chance. If you fail, they are immune for 24 hours. It's really unfortunate. Now, the single strongest aspect of the Superstition Instinct is the +2 bonus to all saving throws against magical effects. This should not be understated. You're effectively a full proficiency rank higher against magical saving throws. You also pick 2 magical traditions and gain raging resistance against any damage taken from spells of that tradition. This just gets a little cumbersome, though, when you get hit by Burning Hands, and you have to ask the GM, was that Burning Hands arcane or primal? Because if it's arcane, I resist it, but if it's primal, it's not. I don't. All of that considered, I give the Superstition Barbarian a 5 out of 10 for power. The defenses are really nice, but it's just not there for me. With all of those mechanical negatives out of the way, I do need to talk about where the Superstition Barbarian truly shines. And that's the flavor. This is an easy 10 out of 10 flavor because that's what this all is. The Superstition Barbarian is anti-magic. So everything about it is anti-magic. Resistance against it, bonus damage to it, even the anathema. The biggest problem with the Superstition Barbarian is that if you removed any of these restrictions or eased off on the anathema or any of that, it wouldn't be anywhere near as flavorful. So it's sort of a catch-22. You can make the class more playable, a little more powerful, but then you lose out on the roleplay aspect of it. Everything about this instinct is flavorful, and from the feats to the benefits to the features, it all fits anti-magic to a T. Easy 10 out of 10 for flavor. Enough positives though, because the fun factor for the Superstition Barbarian is a 1 out of 10. Rules as written, this barbarian is the opposite of fun. Unless the rest of your party is also anti-magic, it is not going to work. If your cleric heals you, and you say stop, and they heal you again, you have two choices. Leave the party, or lose your powers. There is no middle ground. Rules as written, if your allies continue to cast magic on you against your wishes, you lose your powers. Now, I get what they're going for, and the anathema makes total sense, but it completely restricts party composition and party interaction, and that is not good for a tabletop RPG. Restricting interaction is fine, but restricting composition specifically, especially with the way some of these adventure paths are designed, does not work in this system. Now, this is all super easy to homebrew, change the anathema, make it so allies can heal you, super easy to do, but I am judging these all on rules as written judgments, and rules as written, this is not a playable subclass. The Superstition Barbarian gets a total of 16 out of 10. Now, next up might be a giant upset for people, cause it's the Giant Instinct. Cut that out. This subclass knows exactly what it is and exactly what it does. You grow big and hit things. That is what you do. It has the single highest bonus rage damage in the game, maxing out at plus 18 damage at level 15, and their feats are all sort of following a similar pattern. It's a little subtle, let me know if you see it. At level 6, you get Giant Stature, which makes you large and increases your reach. At level 12, you get Titan Stature, which makes you huge and increases your reach. Giant's Lunge increases your reach. You see the subtle pattern here? There's no denying the Giant Instinct's power. At level 14, you can attack with any melee weapon from 20 feet away with all that insane bonus Giant Instinct rage damage. The Instinct does come with some downsides, though. First off, reach and damage is all you're getting. You're not getting any utility, you're not getting any special movement, and on top of that, you're actually losing more armor class than other barbarians. Giant Instinct barbarians, as long as they are increased in size or wielding their large weapon, take a permanent clumsy 1 condition, reducing armor class, reflex saves, and any other dex-based skill check. All that said, I'd be a fool to give the Giant any less than 8 out of 10 for their power. They're not super deep, but they are damn good at what they do. As for the flavor, it's kind of a mixed bag. You have a ton of choices to make it level 1. What type of giant are you focused on? Do you revere them? Do you worship them? Or do you hate them and want to kill them? Do you want to worship a storm giant? Do you hate a fire giant? You even get a specific elemental resistance depending on your favored giant. There's a lot to play with here. And that's about where it stops. You see, as you level up and get new feats, your type of giant doesn't matter anymore. It just gives you the resistance. None of the feats you gain focus on the different types of giants, which is a shame. Almost every giant can inflict a different type of condition, and that would have been cool to see reflected in the subclass. Storm giants can deafen you, and ice giants can immobilize you. Unfortunately, the subclass really just gives you size and damage. I still give it a 6 out of 10 for the multitude of choices you have at character creation. I just wish they did more with it as you leveled up. As for the fun factor, what you see is what you get. Do you want to be a huge creature attacking for massive damage from 20 feet away with a melee weapon? Perfect. Giant is a 10 out of 10 for you. If that's not what you're looking for, the score will be substantially lower. Personally, I give it a 6 out of 10. I think this would be a really fun character to play in a short-form campaign, but playing it over a long-form campaign would likely get very repetitive, especially if combat is frequent. This instinct does make enclosed spaces more interesting combats for you, though, especially if you're in something like a small hut or a house where you can't grow in size, or you could grow, but to some other penalties, it'd be really interesting to try to balance that. You also have to deal with the Giant Instinct's most formidable and mortal enemy: doors. The Giant Instinct's total score is 20 out of 30. Alright, with the bottom 3 out of the way, let's talk about the top 3 Barbarian Instincts, and... Whoa, do you hear that? Do you feel that? What is that? It's... the new Stone Instinct Barbarian I've just released on my Patreon for any pledge of $10 or higher. Also, to the viewers who complained about me making videos about certain topics so I can sell my third-party homebrew, yes, I do that. It's called marketing. When someone thinks about the Barbarian, they typically think about two things: big damage and big hit points. Well, the Barbarian in Pathfinder 2e doesn't really have any truly defensive options. All of the instincts lose armor class when they rage and can pretty easily start becoming crit magnets in bad situations. That's why I've decided to make a purely defensive instinct for the Barbarian: the Stone Instinct. Through a close kinship with the ground beneath their feet, Stone Instinct Barbarians gain more defensive options and higher damage resistance than other barbarians. At first level, the Stone Instinct ignores the -1 armor class penalty for raging and gains twice as many temporary hit points as a normal barbarian. Keep in mind, however, that higher defenses do come at the sacrifice of lower offenses. Along with all the normal class features for leveling up, this homebrew also comes with 2 completely unique feats for the Stone Instinct Barbarian at levels 6 and 12. If this sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the description or the pinned comment below. They'll take you right to the Nonat1's Patreon page, where any pledge of $10 or higher gets you instant access to the Stone Instinct Barbarian, as well as all of the rest of the homebrew I've released. At the time of recording this, that's 8 new subclasses, 8 new alchemical items, a new archetype, and a new cantrip. A huge shout out to all 119 patrons at the time of this recording. I can confidently say that without all of these people, I would not be where I am today. Coming up next, what some people might have expected to be number 1, the Animal Instinct Barbarian. Now we're at the point where the rest of these instincts are just purely incredible. There are no bad instincts left on this list, and the Animal Barbarian is incredible for a multitude of reasons. They don't need a weapon, so they're never unarmed. They always have access to a 1d10 unarmed strike, 1d12 once they're level 7. Their anathema is super easy to handle, their feats are strong thematically and mechanically, and on top of all of this, they're one of the most new player-friendly builds in the entire game. This subclass offers freedom of choice, mechanical power, and simplicity all tied up in one neat package. Speaking of mechanical power, Animal Skin is probably the single strongest barbarian feat in the entire game. I won't go into the details, but this feat usually results in a flat +2 or +3 armor class boost to the barbarian when they take it. If you have this feat and a shield as a barbarian, your armor class could rival that of a champion. The power of this subclass should not be underestimated. 8 out of 10. This subclass doesn't suffer when it comes to flavor either. It's sort of the ultimate half-druid, half-barbarian that people have wanted to play for years. Being able to shapeshift into an animal-like form is dripping with flavor, and you can describe it however you want. Were you the descendant of a werewolf or other werebeast? Were you cursed by a hag in a forest? Or is this just some magical supernatural ability you've been able to do since birth? The story is yours to write, and the game gives you a million different starting points. They even offer you Animal Rage at 8th level as a feat. Mechanically speaking, this feat is almost pointless. You use your own statistics and just take on the full form of your chosen animal. But this means that your barbarian can finally be a wolf on all levels, including the physical. Another easy 8 out of 10 for flavor. There's really not much else I can say without repeating myself. I've seen this instinct in action, and it combines all of the best parts of the Pathfinder 2e system. Roleplay and combat and all of the mechanics available to you are done so well with this instinct. Plus, as a lover of options, having 9 choices of animal at level 1 to pick from is really satisfying to me. The Animal Instinct Barbarian gets 8s across the board, leading to a total score of 24 out of 30. Now, I'm sure y'all weren't expecting this one to show up so high in the rankings. The Spirit Instinct Barbarian. Now, this is a fascinating subclass. In the right situation, I would not hesitate to give this a 10 out of 10 for power. The thing that makes it an amazing subclass is that even not in the right situation, I still give it an 8 out of 10. Being able to manipulate your rage damage type each time you rage is so powerful, being able to choose between positive, negative, or your normal damage. This means if you're facing undead, choose to deal positive damage. If you're fighting whatever in the world is weak to negative damage, choose that instead. Since Spirit Barbarians are so good at taking advantage of specific enemy weaknesses, they're one of the few barbarians that can actually get away with using an agile or finesse weapon. Sure, their total rage damage will be lower, but that might mean they can hit multiple times and trigger that weakness multiple times. Spirit Instinct also gets some incredible feats, and they're super unique and complementary to the overall theme of Spirit. Spirit's Interference lets your ancestors' ghosts literally push ranged attacks away from you, giving a 20% chance to just dodge any ranged attack on you. And Spirit's Wrath is just super cool. It gives you this nice 120-foot range attack that deals positive or negative damage, your choice, each time you use it. This effect is not linked to your rage. So even if you've raged to deal positive damage, you can use Spirit's Wrath and have it deal negative damage. You can also use it as many times as you like. It functions like an attack, so it suffers a penalty, but you can still use it 3 times in one turn. Also, bonus points. It does not need line of sight, and it inflicts Frightened 1 on a critical hit. Such a fantastic feat. With all of this combined, it gets a solid 8 out of 10 in power. This instinct really does fly under the radar, but it's one of the most flavorful out there. Through its use of ancestral ghosts in offensive, defensive, and support utility, it really exemplifies a barbarian using their ancestors' ghosts in combat. The multitude of uses really just makes it feel like Paizo took their time and fleshed out this subclass as much as possible. The Spirit Instinct gets a 9 out of 10 for flavor. The fun of the Spirit Instinct kinda comes in its consistency. You're going to be useful regardless of what you're fighting. Sometimes you might be more useful, but you'll always be somewhat useful. It's really the 2 feats that seal the deal for me. Spirit's Interference and Spirit's Wrath are such unique abilities that are so unlike everything else available to the barbarian. The fun factor for the Spirit Instinct is an 8 out of 10, giving a total score of 25 out of 30. And if you have a second grade education and knowledge of process of elimination, you know the only instinct left is the fan favorite. The grandiose subclass that is so popular and so loved, it effectively gets its own archetype that lets certain other classes and races also transform into a big, scary, flying monster. Of course, I'm talking about the Draconic Instinct. Where to begin? Well, let's start with your rage damage. When you make a Draconic Instinct Barbarian, you pick a specific type of dragon. Then, every time you rage, you can choose to either deal the base rage damage or deal increased damage of the same element as the dragon you selected. It is very important to highlight that this damage change is optional. If you picked a red dragon, you can choose to either rage and deal 4 fire damage, or if you're possibly fighting something immune to fire, you can rage and stick with the 2 base physical damage bonus. Now you're going to want to use your Draconic Rage damage because it is the second highest barbarian rage damage in the game, second only to Giant. At level 15, Draconic Rage deals an additional 16 damage of your dragon's chosen element. Combine all of that sublime damage with some insanely powerful feats, and you've got the king of barbarian power. Elemental Dragon Breath that scales with your level. Permanent Flight at level 12 as long as you're raging. Full-on Dragon Form at level 16. Compared to all the other instincts, Draconic Barbarians get a 10 out of 10 for power. Well, how about the flavor? Did you not just hear what I said? Editor, just replay that last paragraph.
Elemental Dragon Breath that scales with your level. Permanent Flight at level 12 as long as you're raging. Full-on Dragon Form at level 16.
Everything about this instinct is about growing more and more to become like the dragon you worship or resent. From breathing the same breath weapon they do, to flying like them, to being able to transform into a copy of them in their honor or to destroy them. It does not get more flavorful than this. 10 out of 10. Rounding it off, I'm struggling to rank the Draconic Instinct Barbarian's fun factor. You'd think 2 perfect 10s, the fun factor's gotta be a perfect 10 too, right? Well, yes and no. Similar to all the others, it depends on what you're after. The Draconic Instinct is not my personal style of character. That being said, I cannot deny the fun that the average player would have playing the Draconic Instinct Barbarian. For that reason, I will be giving the Draconic Instinct an 8 out of 10 for fun factor. It may not be for me, but I will not let that detract from the rest of the fun the world can clearly have with this subclass. This gives the Draconic Instinct a total score of 28 out of 30. So there you have it. My personal rankings for every subclass of Barbarian in Pathfinder 2e. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know down in the comments. I love to hear from you. And hey, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again to my patrons for supporting me in everything I do. If you would also like to become a Known@One's patron, please follow the link in the description or the pinned comment below to the Known@One's Patreon page. I appreciate every penny of support all of you have given me. With all of that said, thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, Known@Ones.